I've got text and I've got code that interacts with this text such that it changes it to 1. But I don't always want it to be 1. My score is constantly changing. In other words, it's constantly varying. It changes. And when you have stuff in your game that changes, that varies, you need to create a variable. So, popping into our code, it's not sufficient to say the score is 1, because I would have to write code for all of the possible numbers, and that's just too tiresome. What I do need to do is I need to create what's called a variable. And a variable stores a value, but it also changes. It's able to change. Now, just like I declared that I wanted to talk to my score text, I'm going to create a score variable. We can use public, because who really cares at this point? We don't need to talk about different security types. And we've created variables before, right? We've created it with the speed. Here is a variable right here. Public float speed equals 0.5. Now, I know we haven't changed the speed in our game yet, but the way my code is set up, I could change this speed at any point in my game. I could make my bamboos go faster at any point because it's a variable. So I would like to basically take this and copy it. However, I'd like to create the situation where I'm keeping track of score. Now, you could use float because I told you float was a number, but floats can be any numbers. They can be any decimals. And I don't think my score is ever going to be 1.1 or 1.3. So if I'm interested in creating a number without decimals, I can create an integer. And that's straight from math class. Integers don't have decimals, although they can be positive and negative whole numbers. And now I just need to give a name for this variable. Well, what's the purpose of this variable? Well, a good name would be score, because I'm using it to keep track of the score. However, just like my speed started at 1 or my speed started at 0.5, what is score going to start at? Well, it's going to start at 0. It only makes sense. You start the game with 0 score. I don't need an F here because it's not a float. Okay? So that's the one difference. If you're going to use a float, you got to use an F. But if you're going to use an integer without any decimals, just keep it as is. Even easier. Now, when does score increase? Well, score increases when all of this magic happens, right? When that collision happens. So inside this if statement, and give myself some space, I could go score plus plus. Plus plus means increase by 1. So if it was 0, if you're going to increase it by 1, it's going to become 1. And then on the next one, it'll become 2. I don't like plus plus. I like plus equals. Plus equals means go up, but I get to define how much I want the score to go up by. In this case, I still just want the score to go up by 1. So plus plus and plus equals 1 mean the same thing. This will increase the score variable by 1. Doesn't make it equal to 1, it increases it. Now, my question for you is, when the score is increased, but I have to update the text to show the new score. So I'm not going to put the number 1 in here. What do I want to show them? Well, I want to show them the actual score. So instead of putting 1, I'm going to put score. And the only weird part about this is you get this red line, and it looks perfect. What's going on? But if you look in your Visual Studio, the error handler here, it says you've got an integer and you're putting it to a string. Strings are just text. So it's basically getting mad at you because you've got text, which is words and letters and characters, and you've got score, which is an integer. And if you've never coded before, all you need to do is just put a period after score and click that first one with a pair of empty parentheses. In short term, this takes your integer and it converts it to text. And we convert it to text because this text game object only accepts text. So now these things basically are cohesive. They work because they're both the same type. Just those 3 lines of code, well, actually those 2 lines of code, we just modified the third one, allow me to keep track of score and allow me to keep track of score for our purpose infinitely, which is not true, but that's okay because we're not gonna reach the upper cap anytime soon with this integer. So now all these bamboo I'm hitting, the score is going up. And just with 2 lines of code, I've covered my bases for any possible score that my player may get. Not so tricky, eh? Kind of cool. And now I've actually got some gameplay. Well, some patterns showing the gameplay at least. So that's variables. If you got things that need to change in your game, you create a variable and you update the variable and boom, keeps track of it for you.